Greetings, I'm UAnime5 and here is my review of Diablo 3. Part 1. The Introduction. After starting Diablo 3 you fight some zombies and enter New Tristram, where you meet Leia who asks you to rescue her uncle Deckard Cain. You then fight some more zombies, return to New Tristram and Leia joins you. Leia follows you until you get to Adria's house, where your character convinces her that reading her mother's books is more important than saving Deckard Cain. Leia agrees to this and entrusts Deckard Cain's fate to a random person she's only just met. What? If Leia is concerned about her uncle's safety, then why isn't she trying to help him? Her decision to stay behind and read books isn't consistent with a character that's concerned about her uncle. Also, why hasn't she explored Adria's house before? The only path to the cathedral goes right next to it. So you enter the cathedral, fight some undead, and find the Skeleton King from Diablo 1 has come back to life again. You then fight some more skeletons, rescue Deckard Cain, and head back to town. Leia is now happy that someone rescued her uncle for her after she gave up without doing anything. Part 2. The Skeleton King. Deckard Cain provides us with the backstory of the Skeleton King, an optional boss from Diablo 1, and a piece of pointless retconning. That Leoric had two sons. In the original Diablo, Leoric only had one son called Albrecht, and he became enraged after his only son was kidnapped by Lazarus. With Leoric dead and Albrecht missing, the kingdom of Kandorus fell apart because there was no one left who could rule it. If Leoric had another son, why didn't anyone ask him to rule the country? So rather than getting a rope and lowering your character down to the big glowing hole to see what fell from the sky, you go with a plan that involves finding the Skeleton King's crown, even though his ghost form is always shown wearing it, repairing this crown, reviving the Skeleton King, defeating the Skeleton King, and entering a hidden door underneath his throne which is located in the royal crypt. Why do we even need to revive the Skeleton King rather than just knock him off his throne? And why is there a throne in a crypt? So you go down some stairs and find that the fallen star is a man with amnesia. How convenient. You then take him to Deckard Cain in order to move the plot forward. Before I go on to the next part, I want to point out something that annoyed me about the whole cathedral. Despite almost all of it being underground, the floors seem to be made up of platforms with massive holes that allow you to see down to the lower floors. Why would anyone build it this way? Part 3. The Stranger. After bringing the stranger to Deckard Cain, Cain tries to identify the stranger. To do this, you can either find the 3 pieces of his sword or look at the conversation part of the achievement screen to find out that he's Tyrael, and that Deckard Cain doesn't have any dialogue after Act 1. So after learning that the goatmen have gone insane, you travel to the Fields of Misery to find the sword piece. There you find the convent led by Maghda, who looks like Rita Repulsa from Power Rangers. Despite having the ability to control goatmen and an army of mages who can teleport, the convent lacks the ability to move the sword piece to another location. You then fight them, pick up the sword piece and return to Deckard Cain. Even though dangerous mages who can teleport are after the sword pieces, you leave it with an old man and a man with amnesia. Since Maghda told you where the next piece was, you head to the ancient temple. Leia tags along with you because her knowledge is meant to be useful, even though nothing she says or does is helpful. So you learn how powerful the Nephilim are, and at about level 10 you can beat their greatest champions. Shouldn't their champions be much stronger than you since they haven't been exposed to the World Stone? So you fight the Coven again and get the next sword piece because the Coven still hasn't figured out how to move them. To get the final sword piece you travel with Leia to Worthing. Leia tags along again but isn't useful, then leaves before you go to get the final sword piece. Once you go inside the church you learn that the Coven has finally learnt from their past mistakes and has decided to move the sword piece somewhere safer. Fortunately Maghda still tells you her plot before she disappears, so you can rush back to New Tristram to foil it. Once you teleport back to New Tristram you'll find that Captain Rutherford has been killed but no one really cares about it. You then go into Deckard Cain's house where you find that Leia's way of getting back to Tristram was somehow faster than you teleporting there. Inside, Maghda demands that Deckard Cain magically fixes the sword. When Cain refuses, she gives the only person who can fix the sword a fatal wound rather than torturing the 2 hostages. Leia then goes nuts Tyrael gets kidnapped and Kain fixes the sword before dying. Part 4. Hunting Maghda. After Deckard Cain's death, Leia vows to fight the Convent by standing around doing nothing, rather than accompanying you when you hunt down Maghda. So she just expects you to get revenge for her, just like she expected you to rescue Kain for her. So you go into some caves, fight the Spider Queen, meet an artisan who was cut from Diablo 3. The mystic tells you that the goatmen are enraged because she stole a goatman staff and hid it on a wagon that's surrounded by goatmen. Even though the goatmen could get the staff themselves, you have to go get it and return it to the goatmen, so they'll open a gate that you could easily destroy. In gratitude, the goatmen try to kill you. You then go into Leoric's manor, go to Leoric's weird torture chamber, help the ghost of Queen Alassia in the jail, go through another torture chamber, and fight the Butcher. In Diablo 1, the Butcher was a unique overlord that you could fight at a low level. As he was the subject of a quest, was part of the backstory for the fall of Tristram, and was notoriously difficult to fight at a low level, he became a well-known enemy. I suspect he was revived in Diablo 3 because Blizzard didn't know who to use as the end-of-level boss. So after beating the Butcher, you run down a staircase over a pit and rescue the stranger who turns into Tyrael. He then warns you that Belial is in Chaldea. You head to New Tristram, and despite being there for only a few seconds, Tyrael is somehow able to arrange a caravan to somewhere on another continent. Part 5. Tyrael. So while cremating Deckard Cain, Tyrael tells Leia that after he recovered from destroying the World Stone, he was charged with breaking the law by Imperius. I'm not sure why Imperius charged Tyrael, as the law that prohibited interference with the Sanctuary was an agreement between angels and demons, something 5 of the 7 demon lords had clearly broken. So rather than point out how farcical this charge was, or try to convince the other 2 members of the Angelus Council to side with him, Tyrael decided to remove his wings and become immortal so he can help humanity. The main problem with this is that humanity didn't need Tyrael's help to beat Andariel, Juriel, Mephisto, Diablo, or Baal. So there's no reason to assume that humanity would need his help to defeat Belial or Asmodan. It's odd that Tyrael feels that he needs to tell humanity that Belial is in Chaldea, when he didn't feel any need to tell humanity that Diablo, Baal or Mephisto were free, that Mephisto had corrupted the Zakarum, or that Baal was trying to get to the World Stone. All of which were a far greater threat to humanity. And let's not forget that in Diablo 2, Tyrael didn't have any objections when he was forbidden from offering you any help. Part 6. The Analysis. In conclusion, Leia's motivations seem odd as she helps you search for the sword when she had no real reason to do so, but doesn't help you hunt for her uncle's killer. In both cases, the main enemy is the Coven, so it can't be because the latter situation had a more dangerous enemy. I'm guessing Leia joins you to help you fight against Captain Dalton and the Nephilim champions when your character is weaker, so when she joins you works from a gameplay perspective, but not from a story perspective. It's an insult to the player when they're given no reason why Leia doesn't help you hunt Maghda. Also, if Leia is joining you because of her knowledge, then she should be providing insights that are useful to the player, not commenting that the architecture predates the Sin War and talking to other characters for you. Tyrael's motivations make no sense, and so far he's caused more trouble than he's prevented. Had he not defied Imperius, then Deckard Cain would still be alive, and New Tristram, Worthing, and the surrounding farmlands wouldn't have been destroyed by zombies and the Coven. Regarding reusing villains from previous Diablo games, I feel that this can work if they enhance the story. However, in Diablo 3 it just felt like they didn't have any new ideas for Act 1, so they decided to leech off the popularity of Diablo 1 by reusing characters from this game. These specific characters weren't needed for the story, and they just left Act 1 feeling unoriginal. I'm surprised that they didn't bring Lazarus back to life, given that he was one of the major villains in Diablo 1.